Welcome to Free Range Flock. We were once the latchkey kids who came home to an empty house after school. We were feral, resilient, cynical, and innovative. Older than Google. Our teenage faces were never posted on social media. The internet was just an idea in our youth. Now we are older, wiser, and thriving. Our independent ways will continue to serve us. We plan to keep defying the odds, and we will carve our own path. With grace, with humor, with joy. Our way. We've been through some stuff. We will continue to keep pushing, and we are not going anywhere. The former latchkey kids are now the free range flock.
So, Sarah, do you know someone who's honest? And when I mean honest, it's not necessarily someone who doesn't lie, but someone who just really always speaks their truth.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we definitely have people in our lives that are like that. And I can think of a couple of different people right off the top.
That's good.
Which I think is a rare thing today. I mean, I feel like we're constantly, as human beings, putting up walls and filtering, what we kind of disseminate into the world. So people who are honest and truthful, that's a really wonderful skill set to have.
I also am lucky to have several of those people in my life too. And they're actually my go-to people. Like I go to, I need you to be really honest. And so one of those people, and I consider you one to be those people too. Like I'm going to go to Sarah, and Sarah's going to give me a reality check, and I'm going to get over myself and be fine. But the other person is also my friend Jenn Barton, and we have been friends for 37 years. We met when we were 17. Y'all can do the math. I'm 54. And we've been friends 37 years, and we've been through a lot of stuff together. She's a great manager in her workplace, and I've seen her in person, and I've heard her talk about, having those hard talks with someone, and that honesty and that transparency. She's so good at it. So good at it. And she's willing to have those hard talks with others in such a caring way. That person who can tell you something that you need to hear, but you still feel cared for at the other end. It's amazing to listen and to see that. And when you need that hard reality, that's who I go to. I'm like, I need Jenn to kind of take me to that place. In fact, I playfully called her. I was thinking about making some TV shows about her. I was trying to think of more shows when we were in our TV production days. And I thought, I need Jenn to just take us to Honesty Corner. Let me just sit her in a corner, and we would come to her and take us to Honesty Corner. So now it's this playful thing now we talk about let me take you to Honesty Corner. Come over here, let me take you to Honesty Corner. So now it's it's a fun thing. So I've asked her to come here today to kind of talk about how she approaches honesty and how she handles that, because it's something that I think that as we get older, that we're all finding ourselves being more honest, because we find that not being honest, trying to do something to kind of look after someone's feelings, that we find that takes just so much energy and it feels false. It doesn't feel real.
Yeah.
And so many people in their 50s and 60s who are friends of mine are like, I find that myself. I'm just saying the hard truths that I have to say, and some of us are more comfortable with it than others, but it's now feeling like now's the time to be honest and face that. Are you finding that too?
Oh, definitely. I feel like I have less energy to try to filter, and obviously we have to filter. That's human, being human.
We gotta stay employed.
But exactly. But at the same time, it's I don't want to have to deceive people or project something that's not truthful as who I am. I think the older I get, the less I want to try to maintain those kinds of falsehoods.
So what's been happening for me lately when it comes to honesty is, so I work in academia, and I tend to be one of those people that if we're in a meeting and there's an uncomfortable question that people are not bringing up, I'm always the one to bring it up. In fact, my boss sometimes playfully says Amy Browning it. My name becomes this
You're a verb.
I'm a verb. I am not a verb. I'm a noun. But people translate that honesty into liking conflict. I don't understand that. I don't enjoy conflict, but I also know that if you know something is not right and the later you wait to call it out, the more drama and the more difficult it is to unwind.
Definitely.
And so I've been down that road where I'm like, I don't want to say this because it's going to hurt someone's feelings, or this is not the right time, or they're going to think I'm being mean. And then you let it mushroom, and then it becomes worse.
Yeah.
So I find that, and I try to be gentle and caring, but people translate that into like, oh, Amy loves conflict. No, I don't. So
Yeah.
I wanted us to have an episode to talk about the importance of honesty and all the different ways to think about honesty. And the number one person that came to mind was Jenn Barton, to bringing her in and talk about honesty. So we're going to meet Jenn Barton and talk about going to Honesty Corner.
Awesome.
So we're very lucky today to have Jenn Barton here, one of my closest friends. And I thought we'd start with let you introduce yourself to us, Jenn. Who is Jenn Barton?
I'll be honest, when I was preparing for this, that was the hardest question out of all of the ones that you were going to ask me. That, to me, was the hardest question. Now, what does that say about me?
I don't know.
So what I came up with is to say that I'm a wife, I'm a daughter, I'm a friend, I'm a sister, I'm a dog mom. For work, I am a manager of procurement for a company that's a sole proprietorship. But it's a company with a conscience, and they try really hard to treat their employees and the community with respect.
That was a great answer, Jenn. I loved it. So, because you just captured everything about you, so that was lovely. But hopefully we're going to get even more about you because you got some superpowers we want to tap. So one of your superpowers is the ability to be honest with others. And I remember, was it decades ago when I was going to start a show with you, and we were going to call it Honesty Corner. So now I always refer to you as Honesty Corner because when you go to Jenn, you know you're going to get an honest answer. So can you share with us your approach to honesty with others and yourself?
I think the approach with others is to come from a place of empathy and honesty, but just to get at the truth and to help people grow, to help them see themselves, to help me see them, to help them see me, and just to create a deeper understanding. It's sort of to hold up a mirror and to get the truth for both of us.
Right.
For myself, I think it's harder. I think that you don't always know what your own truth is when something comes up. I don't always know my own truth from the beginning. You might still be working it out. So I think for honesty with yourself is more of a process. Honesty with others is more of an observation and a reflection.
So why is honesty so important to you?
Again, I think it's about understanding, understanding self, understanding others, being understood, creating a deeper bond. You know, I like people.
Right.
And I want people to like me. And I want people to like each other. And I think that if you approach that, who you really are comes out. And so your bond is going to be deeper and more meaningful and more truthful, which means they might not need to be in your life.
Right. Oh, yeah.
You know, to get at the truth of who someone is and to show them who you are. It can be fragile, but in the end, it's better.
Right.
Well, that transparency is so lacking, I think, in so much of our interactions in the world. And approaching life with that kind of transparency of yourself, who you are, and also trying to share that transparency with other people, I think is so, so important in today's world.
And it's interesting you say that about transparency in today's world, because with so much social media and all kinds of different platforms, what is the truth?
Yeah.
And sometimes the truth is all those goofy sayings you repost on Facebook because it touches a part of you that you didn't capture in words yourself. But sometimes that's just a surface thing to make you look better.
Right.
Oh, definitely.
So
Definitely.
I think that weeding that out and being honest, really sharing your honesty with others, helps other people share their honesty with you.
Right.
I agree with that 100%. I also think sometimes, though, it's hard for people to do that because of all those protective walls that we have to put up in the world.
Right.
And we have to give people the grace to be able to have those walls until they're ready to pull them down.
Right.
So,
And there's something about honesty when it comes to being older. It comes more natural as not to everyone, like fully, like, some people, like to you, Jen. I think that you've always been so honest, but getting older just feels like it's just easier to be honest, because not being honest feels like it's so much more work.
definitely.
So much
Absolutely.
more work. Definitely. But sometimes being honest is difficult. So how do you handle being honest in difficult times?
That's a hard one to answer. Again, I think if you approach it from acknowledging your vulnerability and that you're willing to share that in hopes that someone will share it back. But again, you have to know what your truth is. And if you don't, you have to be able to say, I don't know about that right now. But if you're sharing a difficult delivery to someone else, it's just better to do it, because the longer you put it off or avoid it altogether or pretend you don't see it, you're hurting your relationship with that person.
Right.
And you might be hurting them by not making them aware
Right.
of what that honesty is or what that truth is that they need. Again, I think the harder part is being honest with yourself, or even seeing your own truth. I think that's the hardest part. For me, once I see the truth, you just got to go with it.
Right.
Because you're just hurting yourself and other people to not put it all out there.
You brought something up about being honest in relationships, and it made me think about the stages of honesty in relationships.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, it's important to have that, to be honest with people. But there's like, when you first meet somebody, you just don't throw everything out on the table.
No.
So it's kind of like, it's a dance. It's almost like a dance of
It is a
trying to
dance.
figure out where in a relationship, when you first become friends or deeper relationships, where do you start doing that?
I mean, I think just as your relationship grows organically, you reveal that layer of the onion at that time. And as your relationship goes deeper, you show deeper. And I think it's just an organic process. No, you're not going to first meet someone and give them all your deep, dark secrets, because why?
Right.
You don't know
that's
if these
too much.
Yeah, you don't know if these people are going to be in your life next week. So
Yeah,
exactly.
and if you do that, they certainly won't. But
Can we say overshare?
Exactly.
right, but I think, just as the relationship grows organically, you reveal honestly.
Yeah.
In that moment, at that level.
We talked about doing it in difficult times, but what I so admire about you is how you approach honesty without hurting someone's feelings. That you do it in a way, even if it's hard for them to hear, you find a way to not hurt their feelings. And that is a skill that I feel like I can do that sometimes, but sometimes I do. Sometimes what I say, to be honest, does hurt someone's feelings. So I want to know, I want you to hear this truth, but I don't want you to get hurt in the process.
Humor helps.
Yep.
But when it's a really serious moment,
Yeah.
although sometimes the more serious the moment, you just be honest hard and then wrap it up with some laughter. And sometimes when it's really delicate and difficult, you just have to come from that place of empathy again. But you also need to know who your audience is.
Right.
And you have to come from a place that they can hear you at a time that they can hear you. It's easy to hold that mirror up in the moment when it's not a really serious issue, when it's just, oh, Amy, you got a little something on your face there. But if it's something really serious, you have to, and you're doing it, again, from a place of empathy and wanting to grow with them. You have to come to their level of hearing and understanding. You have to make sure that they can hear, that they're in a place emotionally, physically, time-wise, whatever, that they can hear the truth you're trying to share with them.
Right.
And I do think it's a mindset, too, of trust and being able to hear it. I liked what you said about knowing your audience, and the timing of things is so super important, because even though feedback can sometimes be difficult to hear, it really is a gift. The person who's giving you that feedback is trying to help you. It's not, most of the time does not come out of a place of being malicious. It's truly trying to make your friend a better person.
A key thing is it worth telling them the truth?
That's a good point.
It is the truth. Does it matter ultimately, or are you just being a catty person?
You're going to say a B word. But
I'm trying to keep it G-rated. And I think when you're young and a teenager, that doesn't always come out the way you want it to. Sometimes when you're 54, it doesn't come out the way you want it to either. But I think that you have to take a second to say, is this really going to matter? If I hold that mirror up to this person, A, do they care? B, are they going to change? Do they want to know the truth?
Right.
And is it worth it?
Right.
Or are you going to damage the situation further because now's not the time, or because they're not in the right place?
Right.
That kind of thing.
Right. So I work in academia, as you know, and I've had, we've talked about how this young generation is all about mental health, which is so lovely. I mean, it's out in the open. We're talking about it. I would have never told my professors before that I'm having mental health issues. I just I need some grace. I would never have the guts to say that. And they say this to me all the time, which I'm so applauding. But there's times when I have to pull them aside and be honest and say, and I have to gauge that, like, is now the time? Like, will they be able to hear me right now? And there's sometimes I'm like, they look so lost that I can't be honest with them because it's not the time. So I get what you're saying about finding that time, but those little moments where I can say, this is the time, and finding that, my big advice to them now is like, when you're here, I need you to be here. I need you to be present. And whatever it takes for you to be here, I need you to figure it. And if there's something you need me to do, tell me what that is, but I need you to really be here. And that's all I can say to them, because I don't know I can't unpack what they're going through. But finding that time is so important. It's hard to do, but you got to do it. You got to find that right time.
And I have similar issues. I have employees that report to me, and it's a younger generation that is a lot more comfortable saying, I'm not here today.
Right.
I'm here, but I'm not here. And I've had to have those conversations with them as well. When you're here, you need to shed that, and I need you to be here so that you can hear what I'm saying. And that's just for a work situation where you have to say, I don't know what you're going through, but I need you to be here.
Right.
Anyway,
it's hard to do. So when you're talking to someone and being honest, and how can you tell that someone's just not being honest back? What's the tells for you?
They behave out of character. Even their delivery of whatever they're talking about is maybe out of character. And you just go with your gut. If something doesn't feel right, just ask for them to be honest. And maybe they don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe they don't know that they're not being honest. Maybe they don't know their own truth. But yeah, I think that if it's someone you know. If it's someone you don't know, then you don't know.
Yeah.
But if it's someone you know and it just feels off, or it's just a little out of character, whatever their behavior is, whether it's the delivery or the mannerisms or whatever, I mean, you can just go with that. You'll have a gut feeling about it, I think.
So I have always wondered this about you, and I think we've actually talked about it before, but how did you learn the skill? I mean, where did this come from, this ability to be truthful? I mean, since I've known you, you've had this ability. Your ability, you've refined it over time. So
thank gosh.
It may have come across more catty when you were younger, but now it just seems more refined. But you've learned this somewhere. Where did you learn this?
And I knew you were going to ask me this.
Okay.
And I think that a lot of things our superpowers or our behaviors or whatever, we learn at a young age. And I would say that my parents have very different approaches to honesty.
Oh, okay.
My dad was in your face, whether you like it or not, here's the truth. And my mom either would avoid it altogether to keep the peace or try and put it in a nice little package. And one of the two of those is more effective, and one of the two of those is less hurtful. And so I guess I just sort of found a way to mishmash them together.
Yeah.
But yeah, my dad would call anybody and everybody out on their BS, no matter the timing or anything else.
Right.
It was, here it is. And then he had to come back later and apologize a few times. Not that he ever actually apologized in a way that you would recognize.
A real apology?
It's like, oh, come on, let's go to dinner,
His way, yeah.
But again, it was effective.
Yeah.
You now know the truth. And I think, as a kid, you find ways to lie. Yes, I fell asleep at my friend's house. That's why I'm coming home at 3 a.m. And all of that. And there's lots of reasons as you go through phases of life of why you would not tell the truth. But, and you're talking about recognition. Oh yeah, Dad would call you out on anything that he knew wasn't true. Clearly you didn't fall asleep at your friend's house till 3 a.m, but
Yeah, I think all of us have done that at least
Oh
twice.
yeah. I mean,
yeah.
that's an easy example.
Yeah, it is.
So I'm just curious about. Now I've been on the receiving end of your honesty multiple times, and I appreciate every moment. Maybe not as fully in the moment as I did later on reflecting on it, but I'm just curious about how people respond to your honesty. Like,
Well, I think what you just said.
Oh.
I think that people, I have been, am, and will be accused of being harsh or abrupt or whatever, but I would say 99% of the time, people end up having some respect for that. Even if it hurt at the time or was like, God, that was rude,
Right,
at the
right.
time. Later, it was appreciated. And I think that's because that's how I've experienced it on the receiving end. It's like, that hurt, but it wasn't wrong.
right.
I had an issue when I was maybe 14 or 15, a little family drama around my babysitting my sister all the time. And I am apparently grounded for life still. I don't know what the statute of limitations on that is. But I got a little mouthy when I said that, it's not my kid, because I was babysitting more than was normal.
Right.
And so I was grounded for life and got in all kinds of shouting matches. But that very next week, my sister was in daycare for the summer.
Oh,
and I
nice.
didn't have to babysit every single day. So that's an example of, it was ugly in the moment, but it was truth, and it needed to be addressed.
There's times when, especially at work, where I try to be very honest and like, this is not working, let's own up to it. And I'll say something which I think is coming from an honest place. But sometimes people translate that into like, oh, Amy loves conflict, or Amy's happy to have a conflict. I don't think of myself as someone loving a conflict. I think of like, before this gets ugly and goes down the road, let's call this out. Did you ever get told that, like, oh, you just love a conflict or a fight?
You're stirring the pot or you're just creating a problem. Sure. But I think, again, as the relationship develops, whether it's working, coworkers or whatever, they realize that it's coming from a place of there's something wrong here.
Right.
And we need to fix it. And this is the part of it that I see. Mm-hmm. And I think that you learn, too, to communicate that better from the front end.
Right.
To say, and so it doesn't maybe sound like you're just trying to create a conflict. Just say, well, have we thought about this? Or this is something that I see may be a problem down the road. Let's look at it now.
Right. So we have to hear some strategies. Like you've given us some good ones about coming from empathy and what have you. Is there anything else that, to our listeners, like our free range flockers out there who are like, I want to be more honest? What kind of tips can you leave them with?
I don't know. It's such a natural thing for me at this point. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say that I've never been dishonest.
Right.
But again, if I am clear on my own truth, I want to be honest about it. So I think the first step is knowing what your truth is. And if you're trying to convey a truth to someone else, recognizing, do they know? Mm-hmm. And deliver it from a place, maybe assume that they don't know.
Right.
And so you want to deliver it as if they don't know and you're not just being catty. I mean, you might have known that there was some schmutz on your face when I told you, and maybe it wasn't. Maybe, but tips for doing that is really to first know your truth, and is delivering that truth going to help matters.
Right. Is the right time.
Yeah. Or are you just being catty?
Right.
I think that's a really good point, because ultimately truth is important, but it's also, you don't want to cause hurt or harm to another person. And so it's like, is this timing, I think, is so important, because it's like sometimes the person hearing that is just not ready. They can't process it. It's going to cause them to spiral. So it's really about, and how deep of a relationship do you have with that person?
Right.
Because you just acquaintance friends, you can't be as honest as you can with people who are really dear.
Yeah, because it's none of your business.
Right.
Exactly. It really is.
So maybe first define, is it your business?
That's good.
Really?
Yeah. I think it's important.
And again, knowing your own truth. I mean, sometimes you don't deliver honesty because you're not ready.
Right.
Maybe you're still working that out, or maybe you're not aware. There's a lot of, I think as I get older, the more I think I know myself, the less I do.
Oh.
And so, which is a whole side story.
Oh my goes, it's another episode right there.
Yeah, a whole different episode. But I think that knowing if people are ready and if you're ready, and does it matter?
Yeah.
Is it your business?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good point.
I was trying to think, when I was mulling over the preparation for this, I was like, well, what's the difference to me between being honest and being truthful? So I actually Googled truth versus honesty.
Oh, she Googled it. Okay.
That's awesome.
And it came back as being honest means not telling lies. Being truthful means actively making known all the full truth of the matter. So it's being truthful means actively making known all the full truth of the matter.
I like that.
And then they gave an example, which I found fascinating.
Okay.
Lawyers must be honest, but they do not have to be truthful. They have no obligation to present the truth.
Interesting.
No, that's a really interesting distinction.
It is.
And not one, I would have put those more as synonyms, not as, different.
Well,
definitions.
again, I was thinking about, because to me, I was in my mind thinking, well, what's the difference between telling the truth and being honest? I think that being honest is honoring your integrity, and being truthful is stating facts. Like, that's what I came up with in my head. But that's why I Googled it, just to see what does the world think the difference between the two is. And the example clarified it for me a little bit, because I do think that being honest, I guess, is telling all of the truth as you know it.
Right.
And not omitting things. And that can be hard. Sometimes you omit thinking it's going to hurt, and I don't know,
Right.
maybe it doesn't. But so anyway, being honest to me was holding your own integrity in check. And being truthful is just like setting out a bunch of facts. And so that definition was interesting because it separated it a little differently.
That's interesting.
So anyway, I just wanted to share that I Googled it.
That's awesome.
You.
That is awesome.
Dropping another nugget for the Honesty Corner. Thank you again, Jen.
Thank you.
Jen.
So, Sarah, what did you think of what Jen had to say about honesty?
Jen is very insightful. That's
Yep.
one of the things I love about her, and of course, I love Jen, to death. But she was definitely spot on a lot of the ways that she thinks about,
Right.
being honest, being truthful, and a lot of it distilled down into empathy and transparency, and being honest with yourself about what your truth is, and that takes some hard work, which is, I think, something that we touched on in our conversation. But it's something that a lot of people are hesitant about, because it does take, being truthful about who you are takes a lot of internal work.
Yeah, it really, really does. We were both taking notes while she was talking, which cracks me up. But the word empathy was the first word. Just that coming from a place of empathy is something that it's hard telling someone a hard truth. But if you let me say this in a way, and this is a place where we kind of have to see each other, like she mentioned, that mirror. That's important. But knowing your own truth, that's an important part of it too. Like, it's not just calling out that person, it's that owning of yourself as well in that process.
Definitely. Well, one of the things also that I wrote down was, interestingly, it wasn't anything that Jen talked about, but it was something that I take away from my work life, which is a thing called SBI, Situation Behavior Impact.
Okay.
So it's a way to tell somebody something, give them feedback, give them, a truth. But it helps distance it so it doesn't feel as personal. Because sometimes when you give feedback to someone, whether it's on a personal or professional level, it can feel a little pointed and it can be hurtful. So what situation behavior impact does is you think of how you're going to do the feedback, and what she talked about was always make sure your timing is right, make sure the situation is right, and those are true across the board. But with this SBI, you're looking at the situation that you're trying to give feedback about, the behavior that you're trying to give feedback about, and then the impact that behavior has. So when you're giving the feedback to the person, it's literally like a video camera's taking it. So you try to be as objective as you can and try not to bring too many emotions into it. So for example, situation might be a meeting. So you would say, in the meeting on Tuesday, the behavior might be, you interrupted me. So it would be, in the meeting on Tuesday, I noticed that you interrupted me during the meeting. And the impact might have been, that made me feel devalued in that meeting because you interrupted me.
Right.
So it takes, the impact always should be what it is on you, not necessarily on the bigger meeting, but it takes away that you did a wrong thing. It's just like, this is the behavior and this is how it impacted me. You're not saying it's wrong. You're just saying that it is. So, but that's one of the things that I took away also from our conversation was just that there are lots of ways to give feedback, and that popped into my head because I think it's such a powerful way of giving feedback to people.
And you're making me think of, so I've been teaching in academia for 28 years. And one of the things that, lots of professional development in there. And one of the things, freshmen are my jam. I love freshmen, but they come like unfiltered and weird things come out of their mouth because they're just kind of finding their way in the world. And sometimes they say things that can be hurtful, and you'll watch the rest of the class kind of derail a little bit. And one of the things we talk about with new teachers is how to help students unpack intent versus impact.
Yes.
And that's a big honesty corner thing that you got to do. In
Yes.
that if someone says something toxic in the classroom, like, I don't see color, and you got to, and then people around them starts to react, you're like, okay, let's stop and let's talk about the difference between intent and impact. And like, what did you intend with that? Let me help you unpack that here, because we've got the learning has stopped. We've got to like talk about it, and then let's talk about the impact that's happened and help them see the difference. And for students who just hear that and go, well, you're being racist, you're being this, maybe something in their history, their life experience made them say that, and they need to unpack that.
Right.
And then that's a teachable moment for them, but helping them get there. And those honest moments are important, but wow, they can, when you're in them, you're like, God, this is really uncomfortable.
It is.
But when you push through, your relationship is deeper.
Oh, definitely.
Everyone is stronger because of it. And so that's something, as when I'm in the middle of it and I'm sweating, like I'm trying not to be visibly sweating in front of my students, I have to remember that when we get to the other side, it's going to be great.
Right.
We're going to be great. And that's not just in a classroom, but that's, for everyone. If someone says something and you have to like call them on it, when you get to the other side, it's going to be okay.
Definitely. And remembering that words always have an impact.
Oh, definitely.
And the intent is usually good. Most people are not hurtful with their words intentionally.
Their life experiences made them who they are, and let's introduce a new life experience and help them see that. So
Exactly.
Honesty is so important nowadays, and being truthful, but truthful with empathy and with caring. So I hope that anyone listening who's struggling with honesty and being honest and owning up to their own truth, that they think, okay, when I get to the other side, when I say those words, it's going to be okay. Either way, whatever happens, whether that relationship ends or that situation changes, you are truthful and it's going to be okay.
Yeah, definitely. So if you haven't joined us on our social platforms, please go out today and find us on Instagram, find us on TikTok, find us on Facebook. Start a conversation with us. We'd love to hear about your own experiences with honesty and truth and what that means for you. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for joining us for Free Range Flock. Our goal is to inspire and celebrate who we are, the Generation X kids who grew up and decided to do things their way, with grace, humor, and joy. This has been a production of SassyAm. If you want to learn more about our podcast, follow our blog, share your positive insights about being a free ranger, or to suggest topics or guests for future episodes, please visit our website at sassayam.com. That's SASSAYAM.com. Keep pushing.